"You can be in our family if you want," said the little girl to the lonely man on the bench, her voice soft but certain. The words startled him, though he didn't show it. Snow had already begun to fall, drifting down in delicate flakes that seemed to hush the world around them. It was New Year's Eve, the kind of night where the air carried both endings and beginnings. Central Park was quiet under winter's spell, its trees lined in silver frost, its paths blanketed in white. In the glow of the city lights far beyond, the park looked like a dream suspended in stillness. Andrew Hale sat there as he always did this night, wrapped in his charcoal wool coat, a gray scarf snug around his throat. His gloved hands held 2 paper cups of cocoa. One he sipped from slowly, letting the heat warm him. The other sat untouched at his side. That second cup was never for him. It was for the ones who would never return. His gaze stretched across. The snow-covered path past the flicker of lamps, past the figures that sometimes hurried through the cold. But his eyes didn't really see them. They were searching in another place, a place made of memory and grief. From his pocket, he pulled out the photograph he always carried. The edges were worn soft, the colors fading. But the love inside that image never dimmed. A woman smiled at him from the paper, her eyes alive with joy. Beside her, a little boy laughed, cheeks round and flushed under a wool hat far too big for his head. His wife, his son, his everything, both gone 5 years now, taken from him on this very night, New Year's Eve. Andrew blinked slowly, the familiar ache building behind his eyes. His chest tightened as he remembered the life he had once lived, a life that felt whole. Back then, success had been nothing compared to love. Yes, he had been powerful, respected, a CEO, a man whose name filled magazines. But those things had never mattered to him when his son's small hand curled in his own, or when his wife's quiet smile greeted him across the dinner table. Their traditions had been simple but priceless. Hot cocoa from the corner cafe, a walk through the snowy park, laughter carried by winter winds, and then came the night that shattered it all. He had stayed late at the office, one meeting too many. He called her to say he was coming home, but fate stole that call. A truck ran a red light. His wife was gone instantly. His little boy clung to life just long enough for Andrew to whisper goodbye in a hospital room. Since that night, Andrew returned to this bench each year. Same time, same coat, same 2 cups. It was his ritual, his way of sitting with ghosts. The grief was no longer sharp like broken glass, but it was deep and endless, a hollow space carved into him. He no longer joined in celebrations. No champagne, no cheering crowds, no resolutions, just silence and memory. And yet he always brought that second cup, out of habit, out of guilt, out of love that would not die. "I brought it again," he whispered into the cold. His voice cracked with something too heavy to name. "In case you showed up this year." He knew how foolish it was. He said it anyway. Then he leaned back, letting the icy air bite at his face. He had not come for comfort. He had come to sit with the ones he had lost. The snow fell thicker, blanketing his shoulders, catching in his hair. Somewhere in the distance, a saxophone played, the melody slow and mournful. He watched couples pass by, arms entwined, children, tugged on their parents' hands, their laughter spilling into the night. Their warmth was real, but not for him. He had everything the world said should bring happiness, wealth, success, admiration, yet he felt emptier than anyone walking by. He still set 2 places at the table at home, though no one sat in the chairs. His eyes drifted back to the second cup. The steam had faded. It was growing cold, like every year. Andrew closed his eyes and exhaled, his breath mingling with the falling snow. He sat in silence, alone with his ghosts. The park grew quieter. Even the city's noise seemed to fall away, leaving only the crunch of distant footsteps and the muted notes of that saxophone. Time slipped past without him noticing. He sat, heavy coat wrapped tight, his gloved fingers curling around both cups, as if to keep them from slipping away. That second cup wasn't his. It never had been. He didn't notice her at first. A small figure moving carefully over the snow, dressed in a pink princess costume that shimmered under the streetlights. A cardigan much too big for her clung to her shoulders, buttons uneven. Her boots didn't match, and her mittens swung from a string around her neck. She stopped in front of him, her wide brown eyes blinking up at him. "Hi," she said. Andrew started, pulled back into the present. He hadn't heard a child's voice directed at him in so long. "Why are you sitting here alone?" she asked, her voice gentle but firm, full of the kind of honesty only a child carried. Before he could answer, she added, "My mommy says no one should be alone on New Year's Eve." Andrew's throat tightened. He forced words out. "I like the quiet." His voice was hoarse, as if unused. The little girl tilted her head, considering him with all the seriousness of a judge. "Quiet's better when you share it," she declared. From behind came a woman's voice, calling, "Lily!" Andrew turned. A young woman in a wool coat and scarf was walking toward them, breath visible in the icy air. Her eyes were careful, guarded. "I'm sorry," she said when she reached them. "She's very friendly." "She's not bothering me," Andrew replied, rising politely from the bench. The little girl, Lily, dug into a small tote bag slung across her mother's shoulder. She pulled something out with both hands, holding it like treasure. "I was saving this," she said, offering it. "But you can have it. It's the last one." Andrew crouched down, surprised. "Thank you." "It's a cookie," Lily explained proudly. "I helped. I put sprinkles, but not too many. Mommy says sugar makes me a rocket ship." Andrew chuckled, the sound rusty from disuse. He carefully unwrapped the treat. It was star-shaped, slightly burnt at the edges, frosting smudged. He took a bite. Sweet. Imperfect. Perfect. "Delicious," he said softly. Lily beamed with pride. Her mother, Maya, stood closer now, visibly easing as she watched. "She wanted to give cookies to people who looked like they needed one." Andrew glanced at Maya. Her smile was kind but worn. The kind of smile someone wore after too much loss but not enough time to heal. "She has a generous heart," he said. "She gets it from her dad," Maya replied quietly. He was like that. Andrew's gaze dropped to the untouched cocoa at his side. Maya noticed. "You're welcome to join us," she offered, voice tentative but sincere. "It's only soup and toast, but it's warm and it's New Year's Eve. No pressure, just company." Andrew looked at Lily, now twirling in the snow, trying to catch flakes on her tongue. For the briefest moment, he wanted to say yes, but habit pulled him back, the old instinct to keep distance, to keep safe. "Thank you," he said gently. "That's very kind. But I should—" He trailed off. The cookie's sweetness lingered on his tongue. So did Lily's words. Maya gave a small nod, understanding. "Of course." She reached for her daughter's hand. "Time to go, sweetheart." Lily turned back, her little voice bright. "Happy almost New Year." Andrew raised his cocoa in a soft toast. "Happy almost New Year to you, too." He watched them walk away, Maya's arm curled protectively around Lily, the little girl skipping, spinning, laughing as snowflakes landed in her hair. When they were gone, the cold returned, sharper. Andrew looked down at the crumbs in his palm, and slowly, so slowly, he smiled. He didn't know why that moment struck so deep, but somehow that crooked star-shaped cookie had cracked open something inside him, something warm, something like hope. The street lamps hummed softly above as Andrew stood before a modest brick apartment building. Snow still drifted, lighter, now flakes swirling silver in the lamplight. His breath fogged the air. In his hands, he carried a small cake box tied with red string and a bag with sparklers peeking out. Maya had scribbled her address on the back of Lily's cookie wrapper, and though it was crumpled in his pocket, he knew the number by heart now. Still, he hesitated. He told himself it was a mistake, that her invitation was only politeness. He'd already said no. Why come now? He didn't belong in the warmth of other people's homes. Not anymore. He started to step back. Then it happened. A laugh spilled through an open window above. High, bright, unmistakably Lily's. The sound wrapped around him like a forgotten song, tugging hard at the fragile thread inside his chest. He froze, listening. Then, before he could lose the nerve, he stepped forward and knocked, shuffling inside. A light shifted. A lock clicked. Then another. The door opened. Maya stood there in an oversized sweater and thick socks, her hair loosely tied back. Surprise flickered in her eyes, then softened. "Mr. Hale," she said, her voice careful. "Andrew," he corrected gently. His throat felt tight. "I wasn't sure I'd come. I hope this isn't intruding." She glanced at the cake box, then back at him. Her smile was small, cautious, but not closed. "Come in," she said softly. "It's cold." He stepped inside. The apartment was small, the paint chipped, the furniture mismatched, but it radiated something he hadn't felt in years: care. A blanket draped on the couch, children's drawings taped to the wall, the air smelled of soup and cinnamon. It wasn't perfect. It was better. It was lived in. It was loved. Andrew stood awkwardly near the door, unsure of his place. Then a flash of pink barreled from the kitchen. "You came!" Lily shouted. Before he could react, she wrapped her arms around his leg. He looked down, startled, and then a laugh broke out of him. Real, shaky, but alive. He knelt, hugging her back, warmth breaking through the cold at last. "I brought cake," he said, holding up the box. Lily gasped. With frosting, he opened the lid slightly. Extra. She looked like she had just been handed the moon. Maya chuckled, behind them, shaking her head. "You didn't have to bring anything." "I wanted to," Andrew said. They moved into the small living room where a candle flickered on the low coffee table next to 2 bowls of Hall-Pheaton soup. Soft jazz hummed from an old radio in the corner. Lily curled upon a blanket near the heater, the cake box beside her like treasure. Maya poured him a cup of tea, and they sat on opposite ends of the couch, separated by a worn cushion, but closer than they had been a few hours ago. For a long time, no one spoke. Andrew looked around at the modest space, the kind of place where laughter echoed, where time wasn't eaten by boardrooms and schedules, where nothing matched and nothing had to. Used to think silence was the only thing that felt honest, he said more to himself than anyone else. But this feels real, too. Maya tilted her head. Sometimes real isn't perfect, but it's still real. He nodded slowly, absorbing that. She didn't press him, didn't ask about the second cocoa or the photograph in his pocket. She simply existed, beside him, quietly, offering him a seat at the table of something whole. Andrew stared at the tiny lights strung across the window. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel like a CEO or a grieving husband or a man trying to outwalk his past. He just felt human. Lily ran over and popped a children's book into his lap. "Will you read to me?" Andrew hesitated, then he smiled. "I'd be honored." As he opened the book and began to read, Maya rested her head on her hand, watching them. Her guard had not completely fallen, but it had softened. And in that little living room, with the candlelight flickering and Lily curled up beside him, Andrew felt something he hadn't dared to feel in years. Warmth. The soup was long gone. The cake had been devoured, mostly by Lily, who had gotten frosting on her nose and laughed like it was the best thing in the world. The sparklers sat unopened on the windowsill, waiting for midnight. The apartment now hummed with quiet. Maya cleared the dishes as Lily yawned and dragged her blanket across the floor. She curled up on the rug by the heater again, her princess dress wrinkled and one sock halfway off. She had refused to take the dress off, even though Maya had tried, twice. Just for tonight, Lily had insisted. Andrew sat on the edge of the couch, holding a half-empty cup of tea. He wasn't sure what hour it was anymore. Time had softened around the edges, like the corners of Maya's living room furniture. Lily suddenly sat up, looking serious. "Oh, I forgot." She crawled over to the small mattress in the corner, clearly her little bed, and reached beneath the pillow. Her tiny hand emerged with a folded piece of paper. "I wrote to Santa," she whispered, "just in case he reads it late." She shuffled back to Andrew and handed him the note. "It's okay to read," she added. "It's not a secret." He unfolded it gently. Crayon handwriting uneven and sweet. A few misspelled words, a drawing of what looked like a bowl of soup, and 3 stick figures. He read the words once, then again. "Dear Santa, please give Mommy someone who won't leave again. She's really nice and makes the best soup. Love, Lily." Andrew's hand trembled slightly as he held the letter. He swallowed hard, but his throat felt tight. Maya stood nearby, watching. "She still believes," she said softly, almost apologetically. "In Santa, in magic, in things coming back." She walked over and sat beside him, folding her legs under her. Her voice dropped lower. "I used to believe too," she added. "But a few years ago someone tried. A kind man wanted Toby part of our life. But I wasn't ready. I got scared." Andrew looked at her, really looked at her. The soft lines under her eyes, the strength in her voice, the gentleness she tried to hide behind politeness. "I didn't want Lily to love someone who might leave," she continued. "It's easier to say no than to risk breaking her twice." There was no bitterness in her voice, just honesty, earned and quiet. Andrew didn't speak. Instead, he stood slowly and walked toward the balcony door. He needed air, space, something. The sliding glass door creaked as he opened it. Outside, the city glowed with distant light. Apartment windows blinked warm yellow in the distance. Somewhere beyond the buildings, the first fireworks started, soft pops and streaks of color in the dark sky. He gripped the cold metal railing. His heart beat heavy and uneven. He had not cried in 5 years, not once. He hadn't allowed himself to. He had poured every drop of grief into work, into charity, into building something so structured it could keep the pain out. But here on this quiet balcony, holding the letter of a child who had nothing to gain from lying, his chest cracked open, his breath hitched, and he cried. Not the angry, wounded kind of tears that come from sudden loss, but the soft, shattering tears that come when something buried deep begins to thaw. Inside, Maya stood silently by the open door. She didn't interrupt. She didn't ask. She simply wrapped a blanket around Lily and turned off the overhead light. When Andrew came back inside a few minutes later, his eyes were red. He didn't hide it. He sat back down on the couch and folded Lily's letter carefully, tucking it into the pocket of his coat like it was something sacred. No one spoke. Lily, half asleep, murmured from the floor. "Did he read it?" Andrew looked at her. "Yes," he said, quietly. "I think he did." 3 days after New Year's, the invitation came in a message that was both hesitant and heartfelt. Andrew had typed it 3 times before finally pressing send. "Lunch at my office." No pressure, just, "I'd like to see you both." To his surprise, Maya replied within the hour. "If Lily has her way, we'll be there." Friday afternoon, the sleek elevator. Doors opened to reveal a very different kind of presence in the corporate building. Lily skipped into the marble-floored lobby, her pink sneakers squeaking on every step, one hand holding tightly to Maya's and the other clutching a folded piece of paper. Her little cardigan sleeves kept slipping past her hands, and she kept tugging, them back up without missing a beat. Maya, in a simple blouse and jeans, looked both out of place and completely dignified. She walked with her chins lightly lifted, as if bracing herself for the weight of judgment. Whispers followed them almost immediately. That's her. Is that his niece? Do you think she's the reason he left the board meeting early this week? Andrew met them in the hallway with a calm smile that silenced the speculation. He didn't care who watched. His gaze softened the moment he saw them. "You found it," he said, holding the elevator open. "Lily was our GPS," Maya said lightly. "Actually, Mommy missed the turn, but I told her it was this building because the glass is shiny." Lily corrected, completely unfazed. Andrew laughed. "A real one, low and warm, and gestured them inside." Lunch was served in the private executive lounge, but Andrew had made sure it was as unintimidating as possible. No linen tablecloths, no towering, floral arrangements. Just soup, sandwiches, and a little vase with a single daisy Lily had picked from the planter outside. While they ate, Andrew sat across from Lily, genuinely engaged as she told him all about the book she was reading. Something with talking animals and a dragon who liked tea. Maya relaxed slowly, visibly moved by how naturally he fit into the rhythm of their small world. After lunch, Lily climbed onto the plush chair in the corner of his office and began drawing with the colored pencils Andrew had asked his assistant to bring. He and Maya stood near the window, sipping coffee. "She's fearless," Andrew said, watching Lily with quiet admiration. "She gets that from her father," Maya replied, then hesitated before he passed. "He always said we should raise her to believe the world would make space for her." Andrew nodded slowly. He would be proud. Maya looked down at her coffee. "There were days I thought I was failing her. I gave up teaching. I took jobs cleaning houses, tutoring at night. It was never about dreams, just survival." Andrew turned to her gently. "You've given her more than most children ever get." Their eyes met and held for a moment too long. Before either could say anything more, Lily bounced over with her drawing. "I made this," she announced, holding it up. It was a child's crayon masterpiece, 3 stick figures hand-in-handed. One had short dark hair and a suit. One had long brown hair. The last had a pink dress and a tiara. Andrew smiled. "Who's this?" "That's you," Lily pointed, "because you're always holding coffee." She pointed again. "That's Mommy, and that's me." She looked proud. Andrew knelt to her level. "You drew us as a family." Lily tilted her head, suddenly shy. "Is that okay?" He looked at Maya, who was watching them with an unreadable expression. Andrew's voice was gentle. "It's more than okay." He pinned the drawing to the corkboard behind his desk. Later, while Lily napped on the couch with a blanket over her legs, Andrew read aloud from a well-worn book Maya had brought along, The Velveteen Rabbit. His voice was steady, warm, almost fatherly. Maya sat across from him, hands folded in her lap. Her eyes never left him. She didn't say anything. But in that moment, watching the man who had every reason to guard his heart gently open it again for her daughter. She didn't need to. Her eyes said it all. Gratitude, trust, something dangerously close to hope. The days after their visit to the office passed like gentle waves, text messages, a shared photo of Lily with her drawing, a new book recommendation, a promise to meet for cocoa again soon, and then silence. Andrew stared at his phone late one night, thumb hovering over the screen. He had typed out the message already. "Dinner this weekend, just the 3 of us." He stared at the words for a long time, unsure why something so simple felt so heavy. His heart beat louder in his chest. Then, without warning, his phone screen dimmed and shifted. The auto-rotate caught movement from his photo gallery, and there it was, a frozen smile. His wife, her eyes alike, head tilted back in mid-laughter, one arm wrapped around their son. It had been their last family photo, taken just a week before. The crash. Andrew's throat closed up, his thumb hovered, then moved. He did not send the message. Instead, he locked the phone, turned off the screen, and laid it face down on the nightstand. The shadows in the room thickened. He sat there for a long time, unmoving. For 3 days, he sent nothing. He buried himself in meetings and spreadsheets, in task lists and numbers. His assistant asked if he wanted to reschedule the upcoming board dinner. "Fine, leave it," he muttered. He wasn't sure what he was avoiding more, confronting the past or facing the present. Across the city, Maya sat by the window, watching the clouds roll in. Rain streaked down the glass. Lily was at school humming a holiday song she had decided to rewrite entirely. Maya wasn't sure how long she had been staring at the phone. She reread their last message thread. It had ended with a smiley face and a promise to call soon. Soon had stretched too long. She tried to reason with herself. Maybe he was busy. Maybe something came up. Maybe she was imagining things. But deep down, she knew the signs. The soft fade out, the delayed replies, the space that grows between people, who are too kind to say goodbye and too hurt to stay. She opened a drawer and pulled out the small box he'd once brought to their apartment. A paper bakery box now slightly flattened at the corners. She hadn't thrown it away. Inside were 2 cookies, still sealed, uneaten. She hesitated, then reached for a pen and a small card. She wrote slowly, carefully, "Thank you for letting us believe, even just for a while." Then she resealed the box and dropped it off at the security desk office building. No return address, no explanation. His closure. When Andrew saw the box sitting on his desk later that evening, something inside him cracked. He recognized it instantly. His hands didn't shake, but his chest felt like it might. He read the card 3 times, once with disbelief, once with guilt, once with grief. Then he walked over to the tall windows and stood with his arms crossed, staring at the city lights below. He remembered Lily's drawing, still pinned to his corkboard. He remembered Maya's eyes, soft and full of trust, when he read aloud from the book. And he remembered the moment he had hesitated to press send, held back not by doubt in her, but by fear of replacing someone he had loved. But love was never a replacement, and silence was never safety. He had chosen distance, thinking it would protect them. All he had done was break something that had barely begun to grow. Behind him, the office was silent. Outside, the world moved on, and Andrew Hale, for the first time in a long time, realized that some regrets did not come from loss, but from running too soon when something real asked to stay. New Year's Eve, 1 year later. Snow fell gently across the quiet city park, covering benches and sidewalks in a soft white hush. Lights flickered in. The trees, remnants of the holiday still clinging to branches like they too were reluctant to let go of the season. And Drew Hale sat on the same old bench, the same dark wool coat, the same quiet stillness in his posture, and in his hands once again were 2 cups of hot cocoa he hadn't touched either. One for him, one for memory. It had become ritual, this sitting, alone on New Year's Eve. But this year it felt different. Not because the grief was gone, but because something else had taken root underneath it. Something quieter, warmer. He stared out across the park where families gathered. Children shouted. Lovers laughed. It didn't feel quite as far away as it once had. He almost didn't hear the crunch of footsteps through snow. Almost. Then he saw the flash of pink belly. She came running ahead, her puffy coat unzipped, revealing a faded but carefully pressed princess dress beneath. It was a little too small now, the sleeves shorter, the hem riding up just slightly above her boots. But she wore it with the same pride, the same delight. Her crown was crooked. Her smile was perfect. Maya followed a few steps behind, bundled in a soft gray coat, her hair tucked into a knitted hat. She looked nervous but hopeful. Andrew's heart skipped. Lily didn't say hello. She just climbed up onto the bench beside him and plopped down like she had every right to be there, which of course she did. Then she pulled something out of her pocket, a folded glitter-sprinkled piece of construction paper, and handed it to him without ceremony. "We made this for you." Andrew took it, carefully unfolding the little card. On the front was a drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands. Above them, in uneven crayon handwriting, it read, "Happy New Year, Mr. Andrew." Inside was a single sentence written in Lily's blocky letters. "You don't have to come, but we saved a seat for you." Andrew stared at the words. Then Lily leaned against his arm and whispered, "You can be in our family if you want." He didn't answer at first, couldn't. His throat closed, his vision blurred. The snow continued to fall in delicate flakes, clinging to their coats, their hair, the tips of Lily's eyelashes. Andrew turned to her, tears streaming silently down his face. He reached out and pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her small frame like she was the most fragile, most precious thing in the world. She hugged him back, her tiny hands pressing into his coat, and he wept. Not for the first time, but for the first time with no shame. He cried for what he lost. He cried for what he almost pushed away. He cried because somehow, despite the silence, despite the distance, they had come back. They'd come for him. Maya stood quietly nearby, watching. She didn't interrupt. She didn't speak. When Andrew finally looked up, his eyes met hers. He didn't need to explain. She just smiled and nodded, a single soft, understanding nod. Then, without a word, she stepped forward and sat beside him. 3 people on a bench as 2 cups of cocoa, and 1 new beginning. A full year had passed. The snow had returned, softer, this time floating down like blessings from a gentler sky. The park was lit with strings of golden lights that shimmered through the trees, and laughter echoed in the crisp air as families strolled, couples cuddled, and children ran with sparklers. But the bench remained, and now a new sign stood beside it. Simple wooden hand-carve, the bench where wishes come true, sponsored by the Hale Rivera Foundation for Families in Transition. The foundation had launched that spring quietly, without press releases or headlines. Just quiet action, shelter grants, food programs, tuition aid, job placement, support for single parents, and stories. So many stories. Tonight, at the edge of the park, inside a cozy little community building newly renovated by the foundation, Maya sat cross-legged on a rug. Around her, a group of wide-eyed children leaned in, their blankets tucked around their legs, their cocoa, cups still steaming. She held up the worn, beloved book. "Once upon a time," she began, her voice soft and sure. "There was a man who had everything and then lost it all." A few of the children stirred. Maya smiled until he met a girl in a pink princess dress and a crooked paper crown who gave him back the world. The children sighed, some smiling, some blinking slowly. It was more than a story. It was the truth wrapped in fairy tale edges. Outside, through the frosted window, lights from the park glittered like stars. Just a few blocks away, back on the bench beneath the now familiar tree, Andrew sat, bundled in his coat, the same spot, the same season, but nothing else was the same. In his lap was Lily, her curl stuck beneath a knit beanie, her eyes fluttering closed as he read her favorite bedtime story, One with castles, dragons, and brave little girls who always knew the right thing to say. Her head dropped gently against his arm. Fast asleep, Maya sat beside them, pulling a small quilt over Lily's legs. She didn't say anything. She just watched them both for a moment, a faint smile curving her lips. Andrew closed the book and ran, a gentle hand over Lily's hair. Then he looked at Maya. His voice barely rose above the breeze. "Thank you for letting me come home." Maya reached over and took his hand, threading her fingers through his. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Above them, fireworks burst into bloom. Red, gold, silver, scattering light across the sky like wishes finally kept. Lily stirred once, murmured something in her sleep, and nestled closer. Andrew leaned back against the bench and looked up. This was not the life he thought he would have. He was better. He was no longer the man who sat in the shadows with a cup of cocoa and a silent prayer. He was no longer lost in grief, chasing ghosts through holiday crowds. He was here, held, trusted, loved. The bench was no longer a monument to sorrow. It was a beginning. The place where wishes came true, the place where he had been found, and the place he would never have to leave again. Sometimes family is not who we're born to, but who finds us when we're lost. This was not just a story about a lonely CEO or a little girl in a pink dress. It was about hope returning when we least expect it. Even a cold park bench can become the beginning of a home. If this touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.